The V-shaped recovery. If you listen to the politicians, if you listen to the media, we're being told that the UK economy will bounce back in a V-shaped pattern, that when the unlock is unwound, that businesses would just go back to normal. They'll go back to the old normal, which was late February, early March this year, before the lockdown was in place. Now, I really don't believe this is going to be the case. The UK is a service sector-led economy. The government is going to continue fairly draconian measures in place even once the 4th of July unlock happens. This is the big date. People are looking forward to it. Pubs, restaurants and the wider economy will be opening from the 4th of July, but there will be many draconian measures in place. Any rules and regulations they have in place will impact a service sector-led economy, because if you make pubs, restaurants, the retail experience less enjoyable, fewer people will do that. And I believe they are making pubs, restaurants and shops just unattractive to go to. Let's look here from gov.uk, get an idea of some of the rules and regulations that will be in place, working safely during coronavirus, restaurants, pub, bars and takeaway services. The opening up of the economy following the COVID-19 outbreak is being supported by NHS Test and Trace. You should assist this service by keeping a temporary record of your customers and visitors for 21 days. So when you go into a pub, when you go into a restaurant, be expected to be questioned who you are, what's your name, where you're from, where do you live, potentially show photographic ID, because to support the NHS and the government test and trace schemes, they need to know who you are, because potentially if someone in that pub or that restaurant or indeed even maybe that shop had COVID-19, they need to track you down to tell you to isolate at the same time. So we're not going back to February 2020. We're not going back to early March 2020. It's going to be a lot more draconian. Expect to be interrogated. Expect to be questioned who you are and potentially show photographic ID when you go into a pub, when you go into a restaurant. I mean, we'll see how seriously pubs and restaurants take this. If enough people just refuse to do it, then maybe just no one will take any notice of it. Let's read on. Indoor gatherings should only be occurring in groups of 2 households, while outdoor gatherings should only be occurring in groups of up to 2 households or groups of at most 6 people from any number of households. So if the pubs, if the restaurants do take this seriously, if they have groups of people gathering inside the pub that are clearly from the same place at work or a big group of friends, they should in theory break these groups up. So it's not just going to be the fun, jovial place that, British pubs were in February or March this year before the lockdown happened. It's going to be a very different environment. Let's read on. Further lowering of capacity, even if it is possible to safely seat a number of people inside a venue, it may not be safe for them all to travel or enter to that venue. So restaurants, pubs will have to take a lot of measures in place. There's a big talk about many restaurants will just remove every other table, so effectively only running at 50% capacity. Now, most restaurants, if they run at 50% capacity, are potentially not going to be making money. They will be insolvent. So we'll see as the 4th of July passes how many restaurants actually do reopen, and of those of which that do reopen, how many will continue to be able to make money with these fairly draconian measures in place. If you're operating at 50% capacity and you're a pub or you're a restaurant, over a period of weeks, you're probably going to be losing money. Most pubs, restaurants only make money on Friday and Saturday night when it's really busy. The rest of the week, they're kind of just ticking over. So we'll see if these businesses are actually profitable with these draconian measures in place. I mean, staggering entry times with other venues and taking steps to avoid queues building up in surrounding areas. So potentially be told, you can't enter a venue just because there's other venues in that area and there's queues. Expect it to be fairly draconian. It's not going to be a fun and enjoyable night out going to a UK pub until these rules and regulations eventually go away. Maybe pubs and restaurants won't listen to it. Let's read on. Local authorities should avoid issuing licenses for events that could lead to larger gatherings, forming and provide advice to businesses on how to manage events of this type. If appropriate, the government has powers under Schedule 22 of the Coronavirus Act 2020 to close venues hosting large gatherings or prohibit certain events from taking place. So if the local government aren't happy, they will potentially look at either not letting events go in place, if they're like temporary events, or they potentially may look at closing down pubs or restaurants that violate this thing. We'll see if enough businesses just ignore this and just say, look, this is our livelihoods. We are essentially insolvent if these rules and regulations continue. Maybe many businesses will just ignore it. It's going to be really interesting once the 4th of July passes, and we will start seeing which businesses are able to survive this. I mean, the retail experience is just dire at the moment in the UK. I, for one, personally I'm not really a big shopping fan anyway, but I avoid all retail shops at this point. I just don't see the point of queuing to go into a shop. I don't like the one-way systems they put in place. You know, if you have a return to make, there's going to be very difficult. You may have to queue for half an hour just to enter a shop, then queue once you're inside the shop to take something back. You know, mail order businesses I expect to boom as the draconian measures on retail continues, aka like high street shops. Many mail order businesses will probably do quite well out of this. So expect over the next few weeks. I don't think this V-shaped recovery is really going to plan out like the media and the politicians want this to be. This is going to be a particularly vicious recession, and all the rules and regulations that the central government and local government are making are probably going to make things compound how negative this will affect the economy. So expect the unsustainable government deficits to continue. Expect more businesses to fold, expect tax receipts to fall, expect unemployment to rise, which is all going to add to the UK government deficit growing larger and larger. I mean, this year we're probably going to run something like a 350 billion or £500 billion deficit that may continue. We'll see once the furlough scheme ends, once Rishi Sunak's helicopter money furlough scheme ends. We'll see how things pan out. I think that will be the real crunch time. That will be the real crunch time when businesses decide, do they fold at that point or do they continue? We've shut the economy down. We've never done something on this scale before. You know, multiple developed nations around the world just switching off their economies. We'll see over the coming weeks, over the coming months, how and what the supply disruptions look like. You know, modern economies are very complex. You only need one or two small areas to start seeing shortages that start compounding and affecting other businesses. We'll see how this all pans out. I mean, I was never expecting, even pre-coronavirus, I was expecting the next recession to be particularly bad. You know, back in 2019, as other people were saying, you know, the next recession will be quite bad. For one, we already have zero interest rate policy. For two, we've already printed hundreds of billions of pounds. So the Bank of England don't really have many tools to fight the next recession. So when the next recession comes, it's going to be particularly bad. On top of that, we have very draconian rules. Pubs, restaurants, retail businesses are all fighting an uphill battle now. So expect the recession to get worse, expect things to continue to deteriorate, expect the government deficit to continue to be very wide, expect unemployment to go up. I mean, we really are in for bumpy times ahead. Things are going to stay the same largely. Expect zero interest rate policy to continue. Maybe the Bank of England will experiment with negative interest rates. That will largely be a mistake. It will do nothing to boost the economy, but will open up a Pandora's box of problems in the future. Expect quantitative easing, aka currency debasement, to continue. Eventually down the road, inflation may start to become a serious problem, and when that happens, if and when that happens, we will see how the central banks choose to react, because I personally do not believe they have the guts to raise interest rates to significant levels to fight inflation. So I've done your thoughts and opinions on this one, guys. The V-shaped recovery, I really don't see it happening. This is a service sector-led economy. People are scared. People don't want to be spending money they don't have. People are really should be saving money. That probably is the best thing to do at this point. It's always going to be a bad recession. It's going to be compounded by mistakes that central government are making. Too many rules, too many regulations, too many businesses that cannot make money with the lockdown measures in place. As always, gold is money. Adopt a survival mentality, because it's likely to get much, much worse before it gets better anytime soon if we have any optimism at all with this government, with just everything that's unfolding in the economy. It doesn't look that positive at all to me. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Love to know your thoughts and opinions, and I'll see you in a future video.